This is Beyond the Business, Weekly Digest.
Every day, roughly one-fifth of the world's oil passes through a stretch of water, barely 33 kilometers wide. This narrow maritime corridor sits between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. It is called the Strait of Hormuz. And when tensions rise here, the consequences ripple through the entire global economy. Over the past year, global shipping has been forced to adapt to instability across several strategic maritime corridors. First, it was the Red Sea. Attacks on commercial vessels along the route leading toward the Suez Canal forced container shipping lines to reconsider one of the most important trade routes on the planet. Some of the world's largest container ships suddenly began sailing thousands of miles around the Cape of Good Hope rather than entering the Red Sea. For global logistics, this meant longer voyages, higher fuel consumption, and disrupted delivery schedules across supply chains. But while container shipping has been adjusting to the Red Sea crisis, another corridor has quietly moved back into the center of global attention. So we talk today about the Strait of Hormuz. Unlike the disruptions affecting container ships in the Red Sea, Hormuz is about something even more fundamental. Every day, enormous volumes of oil leave the Persian Gulf through this narrow maritime corridor on the way to global markets. When tensions rise here, the consequences ripple through the entire global economy. Inside the corridor, international shipping follows designated traffic lanes used by vessels traveling in opposite directions. Each lane is only 2 nautical miles wide. These narrow lanes carry some of the largest ships on Earth. Ultra large crude carriers, very large crude carriers, liquefied natural gas carriers. Together, they transport enormous quantities of energy to global markets. On average, around 20 million barrels of oil per day pass through the strait. That represents about one-fifth of global oil consumption. In addition, the corridor carries a significant portion of global liquefied natural gas exports, particularly shipments from Qatar. This makes the Strait of Hormuz one of the most important energy choke points in the world. Over recent weeks, security tensions around the Strait of Hormuz have intensified. Several commercial vessels operating near the corridor have been damaged during attacks linked to the wider regional conflict. Among the ships reported hit in the Gulf was the oil tanker Safe Sea Vishnu, which caught fire after being struck during an attack. Another vessel, the Maltese flag tanker Zephyrus, was also damaged during the same wave of incidents. Cargo vessels have also been affected. The Thai flag bulk carrier Mori Nari suffered damage after being struck by projectiles in the region and experienced a fire on board. These incidents illustrate how quickly geopolitical tensions can translate into operational risk for commercial shipping. For vessels navigating the corridor, the transit has become a carefully monitored operation. Bridge teams maintain heightened watch conditions. Ships communicate regularly with maritime security coordination centers. Naval patrols from multiple countries monitor traffic in the region. Even small changes in regional security conditions can trigger updated warnings to commercial vessels. Imagine the perspective from the bridge of a large crude carrier approaching the Strait of Hormuz. The vessel may have departed from Ras Tanura in Saudi Arabia or Basra in Iraq. It carries millions of barrels of crude oil destined for refineries in Asia or Europe. Under normal circumstances, the transit through Hormuz is routine. But during periods of geopolitical tension, the atmosphere changes. Security advisories arrive via satellite. Naval patrol vessels appear on radar. Warning mentioned drones or fast attack craft operating nearby. Every radar contact receives closer attention. Every signal becomes significant. Yet the vessel continues forward because the global energy system still depends on this narrow corridor. Security tensions quickly translate into economic consequences. When ships enter regions classified as high risk zones, insurers require additional war risk coverage. For large crude carriers, this coverage can add hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cost of a single voyage. But rising risk also affects freight markets. Freight rates for tanker voyages often surge when geopolitical tensions increase. Higher earnings can offset rising insurance costs. This creates a complicated calculation for ship owners. Higher risk, but also higher profit. Greek tanker operators who control one of the largest crude tanker fleet in the world have continued operating in the region despite elevated security concerns. For many ship owners, the economics remains compelling. The current tensions in Hormuz are not unprecedented. During the 1980s, the region witnessed one of the most dramatic maritime conflicts in modern history, the tanker war. This phase of the Iran-Iraq war saw both sides targeting oil tankers and commercial vessels in the Persian Gulf. Between 1984 and 1988, more than 400 commercial ships were attacked. Missiles, mines, and aircraft were used against tankers transporting oil from Gulf states. Insurance premiums skyrocketed. Some shipping companies temporarily halted operations in the region, but the flow of oil never completely stopped. Even under constant threat, tankers continued sailing. The situation escalated to the point where the United States launched a major naval operations. In 1987, the United States began escorting Kuwaiti oil tankers through the Gulf. The operation was known also as Operation Earnest Will. American warships accompanied commercial vessels through the corridor to protect them from attacks. One of the most dramatic incidents occurred in 1988 when the U.S. Navy frigate USS Samuel B. Roberts struck an Iranian mine in the Gulf. The explosion nearly sank the ship and triggered a major U.S. military response. These events demonstrated just how strategically important the corridor had become. Today, the United States maintains a major naval presence in the region. The U.S. Fifth Fleet is headquartered in Bahrain. Its operational area covers the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Arabian Sea, and parts of the Indian Ocean. The fleet's presence is designed in part to ensure the security of vital maritime corridors such as the Strait of Hormuz. Dozens of naval vessels, surveillance aircraft, and maritime patrol systems operate in the region. Their mission includes protecting commercial shipping routes and maintaining freedom of navigation. To understand the strategic importance of the corridor, consider several key facts. First, roughly 20% of global oil consumption passes through the Strait of Hormuz every day. Second, about one-third of the world's seaborne oil trade transits this corridor. Third, the waterway itself is extremely narrow relatively to the size of the ships navigating it. Fourth, around 100 vessels pass through the strait daily, including dozens of large oil tankers. Fifth, the corridor is also a major route for global LNG exports. Sixth, even small disruptions in the strait can cause immediate reactions in global oil markets. And seventh, despite decades of geopolitical tension, the corridor has never been completely closed to commercial shipping. Recognizing the vulnerability of relying on a single choke point, some energy exporters have invested in alternative routes. Saudi Arabia built the East West pipeline, which transports crude oil from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea coast. The pipeline leads to Yanbu Industrial Port, a major Saudi export terminal on the Red Sea. From Yanbu, tankers can sail directly toward Europe or Asia without passing through Hormuz. The pipeline has a capacity of roughly 5 million barrels per day. However, this is still far below the total volume normally moving through the strait. One of the most frequently discussed scenarios in energy markets is the possibility of a temporary closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts estimate that even a short disruption could remove up to 20 million barrels of oil per day from global markets. Such a shock would send energy prices sharply higher. Some projections suggest oil prices could spike to $150 or even $200 per barrel in extreme scenarios. Governments would likely release strategic petroleum reserves. Energy companies would scramble to redirect supply, but replacing the lost volumes quickly would be extremely difficult. The Strait of Hormuz reminds us that global energy systems are deeply shaped by geography. A handful of narrow corridors connect the world's major economic regions. The Suez Canal links Europe and Asia, the Strait of Malacca connects the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and the Strait of Hormuz connects the Persian Gulf with the global energy market. And when tensions rise in these corridors, the ripple effect extends across the global economy. Energy prices shift, shipping markets react, ensuring costs rise, and yet the system continues adapting. Tankers can adjust routes, pipelines redirect flows, and markets reprice risk. Global trade continues moving across oceans because the global logistics system is not static. It is a dynamic network constantly adjusting to the realities of the world it serves.